Good evening. This is Bill Halliday, high school principal at Healdsburg High School. This has been an evening that we're very excited to present. We're very hopeful to present. We're also a little nervous about what's pending. We've been looking forward to having students come back on our campus for a long time. We've been dreaming about what this day is going to look like. And as the day approaches, we are here this evening to give you information about the work that we've been doing to make sure that we open school in a safe manner and give you as much information this evening as possible about our schedule and the rest of the components of our students coming back to school in a hybrid model beginning on April 5th. This has been a very complicated and convoluted process that has involved a very talented and very dedicated team. You'll be hearing from two of them tonight in addition to myself, our two nurses. I also want to thank Chris Vandenhugel and Aaron Fender and Diane Conger and Rob Smith and the entire team at the high school for helping us in getting ready for tonight and getting ready for open. Okay, Karen, next slide. The agenda for tonight, we're going to begin by talking about what our in-person and distance learning schedule will look like. It's a little complicated, and I appreciate the patience that everybody has demonstrated the last year as we're now going to be introducing our third COVID schedule for our students to adjust to. We're going to talk a little bit about what a day will look like and the differences and the similarities of what the day will look like. Remind everybody that this has been kind of a phased return to campus, and our board has been very much involved in this and very supportive of this. And then also just a reminder about the family survey and the choices that our families have had in their learning style. Okay, next page. Okay, now everybody out there in the Facebook and Zoom land, just take a deep breath because this looks very complicated, and I'm going to go through the steps. Take a couple minutes to go through what it will look like for a student who is in stable group A or stable group B. And then also we'll talk a little bit about what the distance learning, full-time distance learning students will be experiencing as they go through this. Our school day will start at 8:15. We're asking that students don't come to campus prior to 8:15. Again, we want our students in stable groups. We don't want a lot of crowding or lines or large congregations of students. So when students come to school, they'll go directly to their first period class where our teachers will have the doors open. We'll be able to supervise them before school. If your child is in stable group A, you will go to periods 1, 3, and 5 in the times that are indicated. And you'll go just to those 3 classes live all the way and through May 5th, where we make a switch, and your stable group A will go in person to 246 for the remainder of the school year. And accordingly, stable group B will come to school on Tuesdays and Fridays, stable group A, of course, on Mondays and Thursdays, and they'll go to 246 for those weeks, and we'll switch again on the same day, and then they'll go to their odd numbered classes 1 through 5. Due to the transition requirements and our stable group requirements that the county health guidelines direct us to, we are unable to do more than 2 class transitions in a day. Therefore, our period 7 classes will remain completely on distance learning. And when the students exit campus, and we'll talk about exits and entrance a little bit more later in the presentation, our students will have a nice extended lunch break, time to get home by the buses or otherwise, and then period 7 will start for all students at 1:30. And they can do that from home or wherever else they may have been Zooming into classes. So you may ask, when stable group A is in period 1 through 5, what is stable group B supposed to do? Well, stable group B is doing the same thing that our full-time distance learning students are going to be doing. They'll be Zooming into those classrooms at the same time. So there's in-person instruction for the students in stable group A and Zoom instructions for students in stable group B and also Zoom instruction for students who are full-time distance learning students. This does provide some challenges to us in some of our hands-on classes, and there may be some accommodations made for some additional office hours during the prep time areas, so students who are unable to be on campus for the in-person time or require some extra support can be in contact with their teacher to get that. How are the stable groups to be organized? It's going to be a simple A through Z list. Stable group A will be students in the upper part of the alphabet. Stable group B students will be in the lower part of the alphabet. Siblings we will ensure that all siblings are in the same stable group. And just a reminder that all students will be Zooming in to classes when they're not in person. So students, again, you're going to be in a group that goes Monday or Thursday or Tuesday and Friday. And on Wednesday, we will continue to have our homeroom at the same time that we have now. And there'll be preparatory and department meeting and training time for our teachers on that day. And also the opportunity for students to continue catching up on their work. Just a reminder that attendance will be taken for all students, either in distance learning or either of the stable groups, and also on homerooms on Wednesday. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, before getting ready to come to school, we are entering into a different type of partnership where we really need to work together between school, students, and families to ensure that we're staying as safe as possible. And in that light, we are asking that the families really screen for COVID-19 symptoms at home prior to sending students to school. Again, our nurses will go into greater detail about this, but it's very important that students don't come to school that are symptomatic at all, and families that go through a process in the morning before they drive their children to school or let them drive themselves or walk or however they get here. Everybody will have entry points, and I'll describe it in a quick second, those on the map. And then just a reminder that we will be wearing masks at all times. And it says here, except when eating and drinking, but what's unique about the high schools, we're not going to have a nutrition break, and we're not going to have lunch served. We're going to ask that you grab a grab and go lunch when you depart campus at the end of the day, and that lunch will include a breakfast snack for the next day. Next slide, please. We're going to talk for a quick second about enter and exit locations, how we arrive, student traffic flows, and then just another reminder that some of our classrooms have sinks for washing and their hand sanitizers throughout the campus. Next slide. Okay, at Healdsburg High School, we're going to be asking that students enter in 3 locations. At the end of the 20s hall that faces the Grove and the student parking lot, in the main entrance, right off the main parking lot, and then over by what we call the CTE wing, over by the cafeteria and our art and career technical education classrooms. At each of those locations will be a health monitoring station, and students will come in through those entrances and get a quick temperature check and answer some questions, and actually get a colored band unique for each day, so they can demonstrate through the course of the day that they've had the health screening as they come on campus. Those entrances will be closed a half hour after first bell, with the exception of the main entrance. So any late student will have to come through the main entrance, and we will ask that they not enter campus through any other entrance at that time. We ask that parents, when you drop your students off, that you depart campus. We will not be allowing any unscheduled visitors or drop-ins. If parents do need to talk to a teacher, a counselor, myself, or any other staff member, we ask that you call or email in and organize a scheduled appointment for that. Okay, thank you, Karen. Once students get in school, the classrooms are going to be different. We really value at Healdsburg High School our collaborative nature of instruction. We like our students working in groups. We like our students having a lot of hands-on activities. There's going to be some challenges with that based on the protocols that we need to follow. And our classrooms will frankly look very traditional. There'll be desks and tables in rows. The teacher will primarily be teaching from the front of the classroom to give him or her the ability to zoom out their lesson, and also the ability to remain that nice 6-foot social distance from students. Each classroom is outfitted with an air purifier, and we will severely limit shared working spaces for students and adults. This is Mr. Gunter's classroom in the 20s wing. Traditionally, he would have all these tables put together and organize his groups and his students in groups of 2, 3, or 4. But at this point, you can see we've had the blue markers that are exactly 6 feet apart. That's where the students will be asked to remain seated. Most of the classrooms will look very similar to this, with the exception of our science labs and our career technical education and art classrooms. The students are going to come in and we're really going to monitor and supervise how students travel around campus. There'll be directional signs for student movement, one side of the hallway this way, one side of the hallway that way. We'll have staff supervising student movement and limiting student movement through the day. We'll ask that students go for a task or go to the library, go for a bathroom break one at a time. We'll be sanitizing those bathrooms consistently. And then again, we're asking students to depart campus at the end of the school day unless they're involved in after-school activity, which of course they would remain and participate in those activities. Again, the focus on this is to keep social distancing. The focus on this is to avoid any kind of large crowding of students. And the clearer focus is to keep our students healthy and our staff healthy. I'm about to hand off to Christine Robinson and Varsi Hansen, our 2 nurses, who are going to take you through our specific COVID protocols for isolation spaces, or what we're calling care rooms, and how we respond if a student becomes asymptomatic. And they're also going to talk about patterns and practices that we need to adhere to make sure that we're staying as safe as possible. So Varsi and Christine. And the next slide, please, Karen.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Halliday. I'm just going to talk through some of the points that Mr. Halliday has already talked about in a little bit more detail. Varsi and myself and Diane Conger have been working very closely for the whole school year with the Sonoma County Department of Public Health, and we've looked through a lot of the state guidelines and guidance. And so everything that we're recommending is all evidence-based. And I also want you to know there might be a lot of details tonight, and all of the information that I'm telling you is on the district website. There is a COVID guide there. There is a student and family handbook there that goes into even more detail about specifics. So if you have any further questions, you can look there, or you can always reach out to Varsi or myself. So the first thing that is going to be required, Mr. Halliday kind of already talked about this, are face coverings. And the only face coverings that are acceptable on campus are 2 to 3 ply face coverings. And the important thing about that is that those face coverings are covering your nose and your mouth. So we kind of want to partner with you parents and students to make sure, before you're coming to school for your first day, you understand, that's something that's required. And we also, you can use a cloth face covering, or you can use a disposable face covering. Either one is appropriate. However, if you are using a cloth face covering, sorry, tongue tied there, we ask that you wash that face covering every day just to keep it sanitized. And there's more information about that in the family handbook. So with that said, there are a few types of face coverings that are not acceptable to wear on campus. The first is any type of mask that has an exhalation vent or valve. We saw a lot of those types of masks during the fires, and that would have been an appropriate mask to wear then. because it's filtering the air that you're breathing, but then you can breathe that back out to those around you. So, that would not be appropriate to wear during this time. In addition, bandanas and neck gaiters are not appropriate face covers to be wearing on campus. Those are not approved for use. Next slide, please. So this is going to go into a little bit more detail. Mr. Halliday was talking about doing, screenings before students come to school. And these are all of the reasons that you would not want to send your student to school. So our cutoff is a temperature of 100 degrees. So we don't want you to send your student to school if they have a fever of 100 or higher, or chills, a cough, sore throat, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, fatigue, muscle or body aches, not being able to taste or smell. And that's kind of should be a red flag if your student is feeling that, because some of these are very common symptoms that could have to do with the common cold or some other respiratory illness or GI bug, but not being able to taste or smell is something that's different, and it's very specific to COVID. So just please keep that in mind. In addition, a headache, congestion or runny nose, nausea, vomiting, or diarrhea. Those would all be reasons that we wouldn't want you to send the student to school. And part of that is because of the way that COVID is spread. It's spread through respiratory droplets. And so we don't even want to have anybody at school sick for any reason. We don't want someone to sneeze in a class with everybody. So that's the main reason. And again, all of these are in the handbook. Next slide, please. I think Farsi is going to take over on this one.
Hi, so this next slide has some scenarios. Should I send my student to school? So do not come to school if your student, you, or anyone else in your house has these 4 items. So signs and symptoms of COVID-19 in the past 10 days. So Kristen went over all those signs and symptoms. If your student, you, or anyone else in your house is feeling ill, your student shouldn't come to school. If your student, you, or anyone else in the house has been in close contact with someone that is COVID-19 positive, or has been told by a healthcare provider to get tested for COVID-19 in the past 14 days. And do not come to school if your student, you, or anyone else in your house has tested positive for COVID-19 in the past 14 days. Next slide, please. Kristen was kind of talking about this partnership that parents and students and staff need to kind of go through together to keep everybody safe. And these are 2 really huge points. So when in doubt, do not send your student to school. So if you're kind of on the fence about symptoms, I don't know if it's allergies, or go ahead, when in doubt, just keep your student home and call the attendance office. And they can get a hold of Kristen or I, and we can figure out if your student needs to be tested. When in doubt, just go ahead and keep them home. The other thing we'd like is please do not give your students medications for symptoms. So don't give them Tylenol, Advil, Motrin, Aleve, to take down fevers and to send them to school. Please don't give them anti-nausea medications, anti-diarrhea medications to suppress symptoms. We're trying to protect other students, staff, and we're asking that you please not do that. Next slide, please. And this last slide speaks to our process if a student is sick at school. So, say your student, you send them to school, they pass their symptom check in the morning, there's no fever, but in the middle of the day, maybe they end up with a fever. Or they're coughing. So what is done is that the teacher will go ahead and call the front office, and someone who is been specially trained will come to the classroom outfitted in PPE. So they'll be wearing a mask, a face shield, a gown, and gloves, and they will pick your student up and escort them to our care room, which is our isolation area. The specially trained professional will assess your child and figure out whether you need to come and pick them up. We'll call you, and you need to pick up your child within 30 minutes of your call. This is really important. Please have your emergency contact list up to date. Your child will be in a room with the specially trained person waiting for you to come and pick your child up. When we call, when you get to campus, call us, stay in your car, and we will escort your child out to your car. And we'll let you know when your child, and we'll advise you when your student can return to school, whether with guidance from the Sonoma County Department of Public Health. We'll talk about whether your student needs to be tested before they come back. Do we need a doctor's note? So you'll have to speak with us before your child comes back to school. Next slide, please. And this one's Kristen's.
Hi, I think a lot of you maybe have seen this medication authorization form at some point in your time here. This has to do with just getting back to school, and if your student needs medication while they're at school. I just want parents to know that this form has to be filled out by your doctor and signed by a parent or guardian so that they can receive medication at school. And it is okay for students to have EpiPens and inhalers in their backpack, that's fine. But this form still needs to be filled out so that we just know that they are on campus. And so if you have any questions about that, please feel free to reach out to me.
I have one more point too. Kristen, I think that we need to make it clear that we know some students do drive themselves to school, but if your student ends up in the isolation room, we'd prefer if a parent came to pick up the child. If you're symptomatic, we want to make sure that your child is going home directly, not making any side trips, because if they do have COVID, we'll have to trace all the places they went. So we would prefer if a parent came and picked up their child directly from the isolation room, even if that child had driven themselves to school that day. The other thing that we'd like parents to keep in mind is that we still do have a travel quarantine in place. So folks that travel 120 miles out to Sonoma County, we're still recommending a 10-day travel quarantine. We know spring break is coming up, so please keep that in mind to keep other students and staff safe. Thank you.
Okay, thanks again. This is just another reminder that we will have grab and go lunches available for any student who wants those. And the grab and go lunches will be set up at tables with our kitchen staff at the same exits I outlined before, or excuse me, at the entrances I outlined before, the 20s, the main entrance, and over by the CTE wing. Any student is eligible to grab this lunch that also contains a breakfast snack. We highly encourage you to do so. It's going to be healthy and fresh and help you get through the day, and also help you get through to, when you go back home, to get through your 7th period distance learning class. All exits will be open. You don't have to exit out the exits where the lunches are if you wish not to take a lunch, or you feel like there's some crowding there. And students, again, are asked to leave campus unless they're involved in an activity directly after school. Next slide, please. Our custodial staff will be doing a deep cleaning at the end of every instructional day. They will also be doing another deep cleaning on Wednesdays. Please be aware that they'll be wiping down all the touch points throughout the day. Again, they'll mop and vacuum and do a thorough deep cleaning of all the bathrooms and sanitizing areas, and removing all the garbage and recycling at the end of each day to keep us keep the spread down if we have a spread. Electrostatic fogging will take place every day. And then also, though it's not mentioned in the slide, I should state that we are going to ask our students not just to take care of themselves by wearing a mask and washing their hands and sanitizing and practicing strict protocol adherence. We're also going to be asking our students to help us with a kind of a citrus wipe at the end of each class, and wipe down their seat and their desk just to get it ready for the next student. Because we do have 10-minute breaks where some cleaning will be possible, but we won't be able to do a deep cleaning of the classrooms and the whole school building until the end of the school day. So we will be asking our students to assist us in that. Next slide, please. Okay. Again, we are reopening, and I want to continue. I want to go back a little bit and remind everybody that distance learning will continue for students depending on their stable group and the class periods. And remind everybody that students will only be taking 4 classes at a time. They'll either be taking 1-3-5 or 2-4-6, and everybody will be taking 7. And then we'll do the switch there in the middle of our final 10-week period. The Club Healdsburg Boys and Girls Club, Club HBG, will still remain open if families want to sign up their students for another place to be able to go potentially after school, or if they're continuing on distance learning. Space is limited though, so there's the phone number if you'd like to call. And then our bus transportation will be continuing to assist our students getting to the high school. Okay, next steps is when we come back after spring break, students will actually be having a week of primarily async work sent to them, and they won't be zooming in to classes, except they'll be zooming into their homerooms 1 time a day and receiving instruction just sent to them electronically by their teachers. Because during that time, our teachers will be doing a lot of training about what we've talked about tonight to make sure they understand the processes that we've put in place. And our teachers will also be training to how to kind of simultaneously teach in-person instruction, and not kind of, they will be teaching in-person instruction at the same time they're zooming out to our distance learners. So that week of March 29th to April 2nd, your students will remain home readying themselves, and we'll be readying the school for students to enter on the 5th of April. We will share with you which stable group you're in very shortly. Again, that's going to be a very straightforward A through Z split. We have sent out as of today what we're calling our parent compact. All of you who will be having your students attend the hybrid sessions are required to read this compact. It's been sent out in Spanish and in English, and sign off on that electronically to ensure that you understand your responsibilities, your students' responsibilities, and also what the school and the district has taken on to ensure we do this safely. Our first day back is April 5th. And then for those of you who have 9th grade students, or if you have students that are brand new to Healdsburg High School, we will be having an orientation on April 1st, exclusively for those students they'll be invited on campus in 8 separate small groups, and they'll get a tour of campus led by our Associated Student Body leaders and some of our FFA volunteers and leaders. And the students will get a tour of the campus so they don't feel so lost on the first day of school. They'll also get a reminder of our protocols. As always, Healdsburg High School will probably be able to give them a little bit of a gift on that day for their return. And again, hopefully to tap down a little bit of that anxiety that our 9th grade students in particular have starting their high school career in person on April 5th. It's quite unique. So again, you'll get more information about your stable groups, and you'll get more information about that April 1st orientation for 9th grade and new students to HHS. Okay, I have to say, this is one of the most unique presentations I've given in 4 years I've been at Healdsburg High School. I usually get the opportunity to talk about collaboration and community and the culture of our school, and talk about how amazing our students are and what great opportunities and choices our students have at the school. And tonight I feel like I've gone through a very pedantic, structured recitation of things to keep us safe. And I want to kind of end on this note a little bit differently. First, thanks to everybody who helped out with this again. Thanks to our nurses, thanks to our translator, thanks to Karen, the woman behind the scenes helping us with this. But I also want to remind everybody that we're coming to the end of a very long year, and we're at a place where we're able to start opening up to a certain degree, however safely and however, again, different this may seem to you. Sports have started, activities have started. We had an activity group on campus today who met for a very nice lunch over by the Culinary Center. We're hosting a home football game this Saturday at 2 o'clock. Sorry, no spectators are allowed, but at least the kids get to play football. Students who've been longing to see their teachers and their classmates are going to be able to do that starting on April 5th. So as much as this has been a tough year, I want to leave tonight with a real sense of hope and a real sense of optimism and excitement about getting back, however slowly, to some sense of normalcy and some joy that our students can experience, and hope we can end this year on such a high note. And we can also end this year on a very safe and sane note. So thanks again, and good night to everybody.